Hello, 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 everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson, and I am winding up to get started. Hold on, I'm posting something over on Truth Social. Yeah, of course I am. I have so much fun just kind of poking the bear, just chink, 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 chink. And I poke the bear on the left and the right, just so you know. I'm really not, I try not to be discriminatory in the way I poke the bear. It could be the left bear or the right bear or the whichever animal you think each one of them might be. It doesn't matter to me. Oh my gosh. So here we are. Let me see. Getting off of some of these things, closing out some things so I don't have all that stuff up there in my way. Okay. It is Friday, everyone. What are your plans for the weekend? I don't know what mine will be just yet. I do know that my responsibilities lie right here with family. Brief update on things just for the family, people who are interested in that. Mom's doing well, sleeps a lot, make sure she gets her medicines and all of that, and food, and keep checking her blood sugar levels and all of that. She's forgetting more and more, it seems like. And that's the hardest part for the family because she's forgetting she doesn't recognize some of her children and in-laws and stuff like that. And it's just, I know it's tough on them and tough on her too. And I know she's talked with me about it, that she's at that place where she's forgetting things and she knows how it can be hurtful, but it's not intended. And everyone accepts it the way it is because that's where we are. So mom's 86 and she'll be 87 in December. Wow, my gosh. And it's just an amazing life that she's had. I mean, she and my dad, our dad, there were six of us kids. Okay. I'm the oldest of six. And we had a good life. It was tough, obviously, here in Eastern Kentucky, growing up here, and all of us growing up here. Next to kin folk everywhere. But, it was fun, though. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on around here. Dad was a scoutmaster. We had a lot of scouting stuff going on our property at Forest Hills in Pike County. And oh my gosh, there were rope towers all over the place, stuff to do all the time. The scouts were around all the time. He took the scouts on a scouting trip down the Tug River, which is the river that separates Kentucky and West Virginia. That's right here, this part of Pike County and Mingo County on the other side in West Virginia. So in 1969, I was just 10, but I didn't go with them. But he took a group of Boy Scouts, starting on the Tug River right here. I think he started where he worked at the West Virginia Armature Company down in the West End area of the city of Williamson. And they went from there. And they were 3 weeks out on the river. They went 3 weeks on the river. They went down the Tug, and it turns into the Big Sandy, and then it goes into the Ohio River. And they went out the Ohio River all the way to the Mississippi River, and then went down the Mississippi River in canoes, aluminum canoes. 3 weeks out there. And I know that those young men and dad, they all had a good time. And so, I mean, it was good for them. And we went on a lot of hiking trips and things. I mean, geez, I could tell you stories of just things that happened up in the holler. Beach Fork, where my family left from there. I don't even remember. I don't remember the year that they actually left, because they left after I went into the military. They moved from there to another place. But anyway, it was like everything was going on all the time. There was always something to do. Always. We all had so many things happening around us. Let me see. We had goats and pigs, and I don't know if we had cows. And I don't know if we had any cows, but I know we had goats, and pigs, chickens, guineas, all kinds of stuff. We had made several attempts at raising gardens up in there, but it wasn't the best. We didn't succeed too well at that. But we had all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, our neighbors across the hill. And on the other side of this valley where we live, this Beach Fork, on the other side was Belfry Hollow, which goes right down to Belfry High School. And that's not how you got to the school, though. Just so you know, we didn't have to walk over the hill and down the hill and on out down that road to the high school. But it's like, yeah, neighbors over there had some horses. They had some horses. And I don't even know who the people were who owned the horses, but they would get out ever so often and they'd come running across the top of those hills. And you could hear them running through the trees and the brush, and you could hear it. And they always followed the same path to get down to the lower part of the valley, to get down to where we were at our house, which was right in the upper end of that hollow. And oh, so many times those horses came across through there, but we became really familiar with their route. And I remember climbing up in a tree. I couldn't have been 11, maybe 12, climbing up in a tree with the branch that hung out over the path the horses followed. The horses didn't see me up there, apparently. They just come running down through there, trotting down through. They weren't going fast. They were just kind of trotting along. And crazy me, I turned loose of the branch and just kind of fell down on the back of the horse and grabbed it by its neck and held on for dear life. Of course, the horse was startled and it took off like a bolt of lightning. And I'm hanging on and finally got it to slow down, but it was really shocked for a while right there. I mean, it was a good rough and tumble ride, that is for sure. Got it tamed, and it was already tamed. I mean, just got it slowed down and was able to actually get off and maintain control of it. But that's what it was like up in that holler. We'd always notify our neighbor over the hill, or somebody did. I don't know how they found out, but they always got their horses back. We'd go over the mountain and go back or whatever. Somebody come up and get them, or I don't remember exactly how we got the horses back to the proper owners. But there's always something going on up in there. And I remember another story, and this I remember vividly. It's really clear. If you know what a bobcat is, you know what it sounds like? Sounds like someone screaming in the mountains, just yeah, screaming, really high pitched scream, a bobcat. The little wild feline. Yeah. Well, we heard one up in there one day, and Dad wasn't around, and I'm about that 11, 12 years old, maybe 13. Being the oldest of 6 and with Mom at the house, and I just thought it was my responsibility, I guess, to grab the gun and go to the back door and stand there and see if we could find it to scare it off. I didn't want to shoot it. I just wanted to scare it off. But I was so scared that I actually took the gun and I'm trying to figure out how to do this thing. I held it up there and it was backwards. And my brothers and sisters going, "Turn the gun around." This scared me to death. There's always stuff like that going on up in there. I remember another time when Dad had a contract to disassemble the Coca-Cola plant from down in Williamson, West Virginia. It was down on the lower end of 2nd Avenue. And obviously it's no longer there, but all the bottling equipment was in there. You know where it went? Up on this big flat area behind our house up on the hill. And all the stuff was out in there where all the equipment for making Coca-Colas. And Dad's plan was just to cut it up and haul it off, sell it for scrap or whatever. But he had the contract for taking all that stuff out, and so we ended up with a lot of old scrap stuff back in there. But now there are paved roads going all the way up into the area. There's houses up in there. There's there's several houses. I don't know exactly how many, actually. I know I've got a cousin who lives up there now, a first cousin, and her daughter, who would be my first cousin, one generation removed. They live up there, and then her daughter actually lives behind them on the property where we used to live. So the old house is gone, though, that we had there. So it's changed a lot, but you can see the similarities. And so it was a lot of fun up there. There was a lot of fun in the holler. Um, tell you another little story that actually was funny too to everybody except me. So we all got off the school bus one day, and I'm in my dressy clothes. I was, I hated blue jeans back then. I hated all that kind of stuff. I was the arrogant one, really. Khakis and dressy clothes and stuff like that because I couldn't stand anything that didn't look like that. But riding the school bus up, and I've got siblings on the bus there, and others had been dropped off just ahead of us. And what do I see? It had been raining that day, and I see this mountain of soap bubbles in the creek. Mountain of soap bubbles in that creek. I mean, it truly was a mountain of soap bubbles in the creek. So, uh, further we went up the road before we got dropped off at the mouth of our little holler there. The soap bubbles kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and taller, higher up in the air. And then it turned. Then I noticed that the soap bubbles turned up in our little creek and just went right on up the holler. It's a half a mile to our house from the bus, where we got dropped off the bus. And I knew immediately what had happened. See, Dad had a steam cleaning business that complemented his welding and construction businesses. And that meant he had a 55-gallon drum of industrial strength soap that he used in his pressure washers and steam cleaning equipment. And somehow that thing had tipped over. I guess the ground had just soaked underneath it or something, but it just tipped over and soap ran down the creek. The barrel, 55-gallon drum of soap. But I get off that bus and here's this mountain of soap, and it's up in the tree limbs. It's all the way up the road, and I'm going, oh, and I am so embarrassed. And my brothers and sisters, they thought it was fun. They got off that bus and they ran for those soap bubbles and just started making tunnels through them. Just going, they were having a blast. Me, I didn't talk for them for weeks because it embarrassed the crap out of me. I can talk about it now. There was a long time when I couldn't. Oh my gosh. The things we did up in that holler like that. I mean, we just had a blast, and the family was solid. Everything we were doing in the community. I mean, like I said, Dad was a scoutmaster, business owner, and oh my God, he was a scoutmaster for 25 years. I spent a lot of times at Boy Scout camp over at Camp Chief Logan, or at Logan. There was a Boy Scout camp over there, near there. I think it's more like Upper Wrangler or something like that. But anyway, we spent a lot of time, a lot of summers. 3 summers I spent over at Boy Scout camp. And I would help with the swimming. I would help with the little store. I just stayed over there those summers, because it got me out of the house for one thing. But it also got me over there. I could just swim or hike around, run the little stores and stuff like that. And I loved it. A lot of fun. Dad and I were not in the same scout troop, though, because we didn't fit together in any kind of reasonable way. We couldn't communicate with each other. And they only got worse the older I got because I became really, really arrogantly stupid. Thought I knew it all. Remember those days, well, I'm 66 now, so I can remember all those things. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I was just such an idiot back then. So we had a blast there. And I don't talk too much about the scout troop that I was with, that was down in Williamson, because some things happened there that still are somewhat a lot traumatizing, and actually, yeah, it's just, not good. So we had a good time growing up here. We would take trips and we'd go out hiking. We went up into Ohio to go on the Shaker Trail. There was a Shaker settlement that was up there. There was a trail there, and we'd go all over the place, and we'd get in canoes and go down the river to Huntington, West Virginia. And we just did a lot of good things. Dad was teaching astronomy and canoeing, or teaching astronomy and canoeing at the local college. I think he started doing that after I went in the military. So, I mean, we were engaged in a lot of things, and the family was, like I said before, strong. They couldn't express any kind of love. They were the older generation, and it was really hard for them to do that. That those words were unfamiliar to them. I don't know that I ever heard any of them say anything like "I love you" or "I love you" or anything like that. But that's a different generation. There was a different time then for them. And but I make a point of telling Mom that as often as I can, as you know, because I'm always helping her with showers or getting into bed and getting clothes and putting things on and making sure she gets dinner and stuff like that, and supper and breakfast and meds. And so, yeah, I make a point of that, and my siblings do too, except for a couple. They don't. They still find those words hard to say. But so so we have a lot of stuff that went on, and those things actually gave us joy. And me retelling these stories, by the way, I would tell you this: back, I knew early on that there was something that I needed to fix about me. I needed to address something about me, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk about it because I knew my dad's position on a lot of different things. He made it very clear to me, especially. I've asked my siblings about this. Did he ever tell you how much he hated gay people? No, no, they never told them that. He told me that frequently. So it there was no such thing. You never talked about that. You couldn't even use the word gay or homosexual because it would be like saying a cuss word or something. And queer, oh my God, queer was bad. That was bad. That was like saying F you. That was a horrible word. Queer, oh my God, queer, 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 queer. But I knew that all these things were different about me, but I couldn't express them. I didn't know exactly what it was. Um, I knew it early on because just like you who are listening right now, if you're listening right now, you know that you knew when you knew your sex and your gender very early, really early, 4, maybe 3. You knew exactly what that meant, and you didn't have a problem with it. Well, I did too, and I didn't have a problem with it. This one, this person right here, looking at you right now, I didn't have a problem with it. I just knew that I knew, but I couldn't say anything about it. You're scared to death to say anything, right? Get into high school. Only one person knew then, and that person she killed herself about a year after she graduated from high school. And I'll always remember Renata Shipley. That was her name. She was a good friend there. And 5, yeah, Junior, got it. Renata was a good friend. We had a lot of good conversations. I was taking her to see a psychologist. I don't know if her parents knew or not, but she had asked me to take her to see a psychologist, when we were in high school. So I would take her to a psychologist out in South Williamson and pick her up and then make sure she got home. She was having some issues as well. Her father was a Southern Baptist preacher at a missionary Baptist church. And I know just then she killed herself she was 1 year younger than me in high school. So she was in 11th grade. I was a senior. And after she graduated, they moved to Oklahoma, and she killed herself out there. And I've been through Oklahoma, and I would love to have found where she was buried, but I couldn't. I didn't know exactly where. I've been all over the place looking. And anyway, she was just a remarkable person, very smart. Oh my gosh, was she ever? Very smart person. I just wanted to say that. And then here we are, class of 77 from Belfry High School. And we have our 50th reunion coming up in 2 years. Oh my goodness, goodness, goodness. We're losing classmates. Just lost one this past week. Um, her name was Mary Jo Humphrey, and she was someone who was always sweet and nice person, but she died, I think it's Friday a week ago, and the funeral is tomorrow, so I'll go to that. We lost a couple other classmates over this summer, so we're getting at that age where those things are going to happen, and it's still troubling and difficult to face. But you know, we knew these people, and the class was really small. There's only like 199 of us, if that. I think it was about 199 in the class. So yeah, these are the stories that make up my life. Okay, that early life and stuff like that. And I knew who I was. I know who I am, and I'm happy and content with that. And I'm just satisfied with that. I'm at peace with it. I'm at peace with sharing the story of who I am. And what I find funny, and really, really kind of, it's surprising to other people, though. I talk a lot on X, and I go after people who are just, I just go talk with a lot of different people on all kinds of different topics. Right now, I'm in this conversation with the Creation Museum, which is here located in Kentucky. And you know me, they're trying to tell me the Earth is 6,000 years old, and I'm going, no, 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 no. So we have some good conversations on there, but some people just come right after they find out who I am, and they will, because sometimes they'll drop in and do drive-bys on my website and on my video streams and things. And it's so funny because they get back over there on X and they'll go, "That's just a man." And my reply to some of them has been this. I said, look, this may come as a shock to you, but I do have a son. And they're going like, well, so, yeah, okay. And I said, where do you think he got the Y chromosome from? It didn't just magically appear. He's not miraculously born. So yeah, I know that genetically that's the case, but I also know that genetics and genetic anatomy, your anatomy and all that stuff, those aren't the characteristics that make up gender. Gender and sex are different, folks, if you don't know that. So I have really good conversation with people, and they're really put off though whenever they don't know how to address it beyond that, because they're thinking they're going to get into an argument with me over those things, and I don't do it. I mean, I just kind of say, sure, okay, and what's the issue? Go on. And then that conversation abruptly ends. Many of those same people never talk to me again. Yep. Somebody was the other day asking about the stars and all that kind of stuff, and the universe and everything. And this person replied back to me and said, you know that there are like 3 trillion stars in our galaxy? And my response back was, no, never heard that number before. It's actually between 4 and 5 billion stars in our galaxy. And there are estimated to be 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. And I said, so how big do you think the universe is? And the reply back was infinite. And I said, well, the observable universe that we see, no, it's, 14 billion years, 13 billion years, maybe that, something like that. And I was wanting to lead them into a conversation about determining the age of the universe. And my next question to it is one they never answered. I said, so how far away from the Earth is our star, the sun? And I was looking for the answer. I know how far it is on average. I know what that distance is. It's like 93 million miles. My next question would have been, so how long does it take light to go from the sun to the Earth? And then the actual answer to that is 8 minutes. 8 minutes. So then the next question would be, how long do you think it takes light to get to Pluto? And then how long does it take light to get from the Andromeda galaxy? And you're going to find really quickly that the numbers start increasing and get to be older than the sun. But, so, and definitely older than 6,000 years. But they stopped talking to me after I asked how far the sun was from the Earth. But the reason I'm telling you all these stories and things is because it is important for us to share the joys of our life and share what we've been through, and not just that, but not the trauma, because people don't care. Most people don't care, but they want to see how real we are. They want to know how open and authentic we can be, not just with them, but ourselves too. They want to see that. And whenever you are those things, well, the conversations generally start dropping off like flies, because then you're being honest with yourself, you're being honest with them. And it's a hard conversation to have sometimes if you're not prepared for that, if you haven't thought about it beforehand. And I've spent literally decades thinking about this and studying on it. So much so that my mom was in here the other day, and she's got this beard that we were shaving off and stuff. And I said, Mom, you know that whenever you started menopause, if you had gotten on hormone replacement therapy, that it would have slowed that process down for you, replaced the estrogen. And she asked me what that was. And I said, that's the female sex hormone. And I said, what happens is that goes away. And then what happens after that is the testosterone that your body is naturally producing is still enough to create and fill in the gaps for the loss of the estrogen. And it creates facial hair growth and stuff like that. And I said, it's too late now, though. You can't reverse it after that starts. That it's like an on switch. It goes click. Okay, turned on. Now you can't stop it. It's a one-way switch for that one. But anyway, I've studied a lot of this stuff, and it's just fascinating to me. And there's so much I wanted to talk about that I could have talked about today. I mean, I've got stuff here on my screen, one title over here, and I'll probably get into that this evening, maybe. How to craft and deploy emotionally charged rhetoric effectively and ethically, and kind of pushing back against Trumpism. And then the other article over here is countering Trumpism, United Front for liberals, Democrats, and transgender Americans. And then this one is a blueprint, a united front for a new era. And these things I'll be sending out, just kind of let people know. I've got some things in here that are actually scripts that can be used on Facebook. I'm trying to get away from some of the language that is divisive, such as gender affirming care, when in fact it's really just nothing more than actual health care, saving lives. And that's really what it's all about. And so changing it up and going at it a different way, because we need to make sure that what we're saying people can connect with, regardless of how they may think. You have to do it with your local level. You got to start right there, start talking to people about it, start taking away from it. Like, for instance, these bills that are going after trans people across the country, these different policies are coming out of the federal government. Really? And honestly, we have to stop talking about, well, we don't have to, but I would suggest strongly that we stop talking about it in terms of the actual words that they are trying to use, because then we're playing into their hand. If we're saying things like, well, that gender affirming care, it's recommended and actually approved by major medical associations across in the country and around the world. But here's the thing, though, we need to change it, because those bills they do two things, and those policies do two things. One is it puts the federal government between you and your doctors. And there's not a libertarian out there who can agree with something like that. Who on earth wants the federal government to stand between you and your doctor? So we're moving it away from the language that kind of feeds into their narrative and turning it into something else. And that's what we need to be working on. And that's going to take some work, because so many of us have been keying into these words that we use that got incorporated into the right into the right side of things, and they're using those words against us. They've weaponized them. So we have to find another way to deal with that, and that is call it what it is. Start calling it what it is. When these bills and policies and stuff come out, all they're doing is putting the federal government between you and your health care, you and your well-being, you and your life. And that's not, conservatives don't want that. I mean, I remember when I was a chairperson for the for a county Republican Party in Texas. I remember exactly that. We didn't want the federal government intervening in any of those things in our lives, in our schools, in our medical care decisions, and anything like that. Get them out. Stop. But it goes beyond just interfering in that healthcare. It's bullying too. So call it what it is. And that's what we're going to have to start doing. Start calling what every time something like that, they're just being a bully again. And they're going to pick up over on the other side and start saying things like that too. But then it becomes our narrative and not theirs. They've assumed the language that we use to early on to describe who we are and the care that we get and how important it all is, and turned the country against us. But how they turn the country against us? Not all the country, good percentage of it, enough to make it miserable. How'd they do that? Well, they started finding just one story here and one story over here. It didn't matter if there are a million other good stories, a million other examples of the good that care does, or the policies that don't do this, that actually are inclusive. All of those policies and things, I mean, they don't talk about any of that. They make it very personal. They go for one person. They talk about this person is do this person detransitioned, or this person is doing that, and they're so mad about it over here, and then you've got this happening over here to this one person. They personalized the stories. They made the narrative around a single one or two or four or five individuals, whether it has to do with trans people in sports, trans healthcare, any of that thing. They personalize those stories. That makes it impossible for us to push back against it, because if we push back against it, what happens? We become those who are perceived as supporting the very thing and actually standing up for it, and actually feeding right into it. Because when we go out there and say things in support of what we are talking about and what they're pushing back against, and they've got a personal story out there, they're going to continue bashing on that personal story. They're going to bring out Riley Gaines. They're going to bring out these detransitioners and all these kind of people out there. And there aren't that many of them. I mean, there's very few of them. But they don't care about the numbers. You can say statistically, and you immediately have lost the population. You've immediately lost the conversation. Even when you start doing those things, you have immediately walked away from that, and the other person trying to hear this, they have immediately turned you off. They don't care about the numbers. They care that there's one person who was hurt, one person who was discriminated against, one person who was killed if you're an immigrant, out of the millions of immigrants who are in this country, illegal and legal. Continually pound on one story repeatedly, or a handful of stories repeatedly, then no argument you make is going to win against that. So you've got to change the narrative. You have to change it. You have to get in front of this thing and lead. And that's what we're lacking right now over on the left side of the political divide in this country. We need to get to the place where you're calling it what it is. When a bully sticks their head up and starts yelling and yelling and yelling and all this kind of stuff, well, sometimes it does take just punching them in the nose. I'm not saying go out and be violent or mean or anything like that. No. But change the narrative. Stop using the words they have weaponized. And I've got scripts to back all that stuff up over here to go on social media and things like that. And it would help to start moving in that direction. If you want to take this narrative back, if you want to win back the civil rights that are being rolled back, You can't do it by fighting using the things they have created to draw you in so that they make you look like the bad people. That's what's going on. It's a game of psychological warfare. They know it, and it's been planned for years. And with that, come back at 6 and we can talk some more. I'll see you later. Have a great afternoon, everyone. And family, if any family is watching, big hugs. I love you. And well, let me just say this: big hugs. I love you, regardless of whether you're family or not, chosen or otherwise. And just have a great afternoon, everyone. Tell your stories. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the view. Enjoy the sun. Go talk to people you never talked to.